Welcome to episode 64 of the Sports Geek podcast. On this week's podcast, I catch up with Cote from the Golden State Warriors, chat about video, China, and Jimmy Fallon, and how the Danish Olympic Committee engage fans and sponsors through health.
Welcome to the Sports Geek podcast, the podcast built for sports digital and sports business professionals. And now, here's your host, who deleted jelly after 2 days, Sean Callanan.
Thanks, DJ Joel. My name is Sean Callanan, and you are listening to the Sports Geek podcast, either on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, or even Audio Boom. Yes, jelly. I can't even remember using jelly. I got DJ Joel to record that so long ago. Maybe I might update it and replace it with Ello, the latest, hottest new social media that everyone's all over. It won't be around in 3 weeks' time. On this week's podcast, I catch up with Cote to talk about how the Warriors' digital game has changed over the past few years and how they're also engaging fans in the stadium with iBeacon technology. Then I catch up with Jesper Nyholm from the Danish Olympic Committee and talk about the challenge of engaging fans in between the big events that are the Olympics. There's a lot of work to be done to get the brand out there and engage fans and sponsors in between Olympic Games. Also introduce the NFL Lookbook later in the show that you can download from Sports Geek. Talk about Cristiano Ronaldo, the A-League, and obviously the Cinderella story that is the Kansas City Royals in the Major League Baseball in reaching the World Series. Send me a tweet if you are listening. Hit me up at Sean Callanan or at Sports Geek. Love to know when, where, and why you're all listening to the Sports Geek podcast. But that is enough from me. Let's get stuck into the interviews. Up first is Cote from the Golden State Warriors on Sports Geek podcast. Very happy to welcome good mate of mine, Cote, Senior Director of Digital at the Golden State Warriors. Welcome to the Sports Geek podcast, Kevin.
Thank you for having me. Excited to connect anytime I can connect with you, whether podcast or otherwise. It's always a happy occasion.
So NBA is in the off season, but like I like to say when speaking with anyone, and people always get the misnomer that there is an off season when you're working in digital. There is no off season for you guys in the NBA. How has the off season treated you guys at Golden State?
Yeah, it's we joke around here. It should be called the second season. And I always laugh at every once in a while I get a question from someone asking if, do you go into the office in the off season? It's very, very funny to me. But it's busy as ever. It gets busier every year just with the role that technology plays, the role that digital plays, not only for our fans but also within the business as a whole. Kind of touches every department and makes us more and more in demand. But at the same time, wouldn't have it any other way. It's much better than doing the same thing over and over every day. It's an evolving space and keeps us constantly on our toes. But this off season has been filled with planning for the season ahead, obviously, but a lot of evaluation of vendors and partners and those types of activations. Lots of content constantly throughout the off season. Everything from the draft to summer league to we hired a new coach. We have a new arena we're building in San Francisco, so plenty to keep us busy.
It is really a second season because you can't just go into planning mode, which is what you would like to do. You'd like to have that downtime to say, how did this go? What do we want to plan next year? But you also have to keep feeding the machine of content because the fans still want it. They still expect the tweets to come out. They still expect content to hit Facebook. They still expect reviews and previews and that kind of stuff hitting the website because the NBA, like a lot of leagues, is trying to become that 12-month league and fill content all the way through. So it's a real balancing act in the off season because you are sort of serving two jobs. You're in that planning mode and content driving mode as well.
Yeah, most definitely. This is actually going to be my 11th season coming up, which more so than anything makes me feel old. But it also makes me realize, how far we've evolved. We're 11 years ago, we weren't really our own media content company, but now we definitely are, and digital plays a big role in that. And like you said, the NBA has become a 12-month league, and with that, we've become a 12-month business in terms of content, but that's great. That's an opportunity. It's something that we embrace. We always hope our season goes later and later each year, and we're lucky enough to have a team right now that is on the upswing. I've definitely been in the organization long enough to where it ended in mid-April every year, and that was a given. But that's no longer the case, and we're lucky for that. But there's just constant interest from fans, and again, we're lucky. We're in sports. We have fans. We don't have customers, and feeding that hunger is our job. But it's also a lot of fun.
So you're saying there about the change in on-court fortunes, and winning is always a great formula for success, but it's one of the components. How has things changed for you in the digital team from going from those days when the season did finish in April to now having a completely different and an amped fan base, a fuller stadium, selling more tickets and having more sellouts? How has that changed your marketing mix and marketing focus from we've got to sell tickets to we've got to engage the fan and we've got to engage the fan outside the stadium? How has that changed your mix in the last couple of years with the success on the court?
Yeah, it's changed and it hasn't changed. It hasn't changed in the fact that we've always had an incredible fan base. Even the years we were losing, we had sellouts most nights, and our fans are kind of known for how passionate they are, and well deservedly. They're an incredible base that we're fortunate to have. Now that we're winning, the interest is even higher. And not only what's changed a lot, I think, in the last couple of years is that interest isn't just local anymore. We've become more of a nationally known brand and even a globally known brand. And that's a big focus for us to extend our reach beyond just here in the Bay Area. We have such a passionate fan base to still cater to those fans, but also to speak to fans worldwide. We've made a big investment in trying to become one of those teams in a market like China that is so hungry for the NBA. We went over to China last season. We played the Lakers in 2 exhibition games, and I went with the team to represent the team kind of on a social and digital level. We started a Weibo account. We started a Chinese website. We are constantly keeping both of those channels up to date, and it's amazing to see the growth. For example, with Weibo, we've had it open for about 10 months now, and we actually have more fans on Weibo than we have on Twitter and Instagram combined, which is crazy to think about, but shows us that growth is there and there's potential for it, and we just have to continue to keep that as one of our main focuses.
Yeah, it's definitely on the radar. I heard Commissioner Adam Silver talking about there's potential for like Saturday morning games to be able to fit right into the Chinese primetime market to make the NBA more accessible. And I guess that's the opportunity there, because there is just so many fans there with this insatiable appetite for the NBA, and doing more of those kind of outreach and reaching on those platforms is the opportunity for teams like the Warriors.
Yeah, and it goes to show with the the level of international players we have within the league itself. Obviously, you and I have even talked about Mr. Andrew Bogut, who's probably near and dear to your heart. And because of him, we have a lot more interest in Australia, and It goes to show in merchandise sales and web traffic and social following. I know he's even trying to campaign to have the next set of NBA Global Games in Australia, and if so, I want to make sure I'm on that trip too, because I hear only good things. But it goes to show just how things continue to grow in a global fashion, and especially with the NBA as a league as a whole, and our job is to try to capitalize on that.
Yeah, I think definitely Andrew Bogut going to Golden State would have definitely. There's plenty of Australian fans that are happy that he's now on the West Coast. It's a friendlier time for us to watch, and being on a team like the Warriors, it's always easy for us to tune in. So there's a lot of Warriors fans, and if you want to come to Melbourne, we're more than willing to open up Rod Laver Arena for the Warriors. It'll be full, no doubt.
Okay, well, if it happens, then I'm going to take credit via this podcast.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, well, first we've just announced it. It eventually will happen, and we'll just claim credit later on.
That sounds good.
Yeah. But going back to the stadium, one of the case studies that you talked about at Seat with the guys at Pogo Seat was how you guys are using iBeacons in multiple ways. One with the seat upgrades around Oracle Arena. Do you want to talk about some of the tech that the guys like Kev Akers have sort of rolled into the stadium and how it makes your job a lot easier?
Yeah, for sure. So being in the Bay Area, we kind of have to be ahead of the curve, on the cutting edge, however you want to say it, with all things respected to technology and digital. We have higher ups from Facebook and Twitter and Google at our games. And we have fans who work for those companies. We have fans who are just naturally socially savvy because they live here. And because of that, they have certain expectations. And we have to live up to that, which again is a challenge, but also a great opportunity and something that's a lot of fun. And with respect to beacons, that's a specific technology that we were definitely early adopters in last year, installing it in a live environment midway through the year, constantly testing and refining how the technology works, but then also educating fans and educating staff on the benefits of it and the opportunities. And for fans, we really narrowed it down when the playoffs came to 3 main activations and usages of the beacons that were both beneficial to fans, but also help drive the business, because that's always what we're measured against. One of them was just a welcome to Warriors Ground message as soon as you step through any entrance. And upon swiping that message or receiving it on your app, you were told that you actually got a free playoff Warriors wristband, silicone wristband, just for having the app and activating that content. And so that was a win-win for the fans. For us, we were able to see how many fans actually received the bracelets and activated. The fans got something for free, and they were able to see, oh, okay, I kind of get why I should be looking out for these messages. The other one was as soon as you entered our team store, you actually were greeted with a video from Harrison Barnes, one of our players, who basically said, welcome to the team store. Thanks for downloading our app. Here's an exclusive offer just for you. You look below the video, and it's a 10% off offer for all of our merchandise. Something we don't do a lot of discounting either, so this was a pretty special offer for our fans to receive, especially during the playoffs. And again, a business driver. And then the third one, which I spoke about at Seat, was we have seat upgrade technology within our mobile app. So when we were originally thinking about beacons, one of the first things that popped into our head was, why don't we put them at the top of the escalator? And as soon as you get to the top of the escalator, it tells you, hey, did you know you can upgrade your seats? We're in a pretty much a sold-out situation every night, which we're very fortunate and lucky for. So the inventory isn't ideal, but there are always still available lower-level tickets due to NBA holds that we have to hold back until the last minute. So there are always opportunities to upgrade, and that was a great way to showcase the technology, to raise awareness for the fact that we had seat upgrades, and then also to help drive revenue. So a win-win for everybody again.
And the feedback from the fans to this, because it is new technology, you do have to explain it to them and educate them on how it's used and why it's used. Because it's almost in surprise and delight mode when this type of technology rolls out, because they're not expecting to be at the top of the escalator and be told, oh, here's the functionality in the system. Did you know it exists? It might make your experience better.
Yeah, honestly, that was the biggest challenge with the technology, was just the education of fans, and the education that we received, from a nerdy technical standpoint, what operating system fans are using, what phones, what versions of the phones, whether they had our mobile app or the updated version of our mobile app that had an SDK integrated into it. So there were all these hurdles from an education standpoint, but that's also where, kind of being an early adopter in technology, those are things you're going to go through, but it's also critical learnings, because it helps you understand how to improve the experience moving forward. And so that was during the playoffs, and unfortunately we lost in Game 7 of the first round against the Clippers. And so that's where the experiment kind of stopped. But this off season, there's been a lot of planning into what we can do to improve upon those experiences, which makes me very excited for the season that's coming up.
I mean, the opportunity now is that you can start framing those messages to be different messages for different people based on their usage of the app, and starting being more sophisticated in what those messages are, because you want to be making sure you're presenting that right offer to the right to the right fan because they've turned up to many games or those kind of things. Is that sort of where you're going to take the technology this season?
Exactly. That's the hope, is that we get even more sophisticated, more granular in the level of the personal approach. And that's also really the benefit for the fan as well. For them, we're in the world of big data and making data-driven decisions, and that's definitely where we want to be. But you also have to make it worth the while of the fan. You have to. They don't want to be. It can't be a Big Brother approach, and it can't be inundating them with constant messaging. It has to make sense for them. Otherwise, they're either going to tune it out or they're going to delete your app. But so the goal is to incentivize, but then also to personalize. And that's where we want to be heading, and where we're thinking that the technology is definitely going to evolve over the next couple of years.
From your team's point of view, from a digital point of view, and I'm looking at your LinkedIn, and it's always good to go back and look at someone's job titles as you started with e-marketing and now it's digital. Do you want to take us through what your team looks like from a roles point of view, and who's in your team and what they're looking at, so people get a feel for how many people you've got involved to produce all this content from a social point of view and also from a digital point of view?
Yeah, sure. And this was an easier answer maybe 5 years ago than it is now, just because there's so much digital is crossed into so many departments that we have input and collaboration with every department.
Yep.
But as far as who's tasked with the day-to-day tasks of digital, so I oversee all things related to web, social media, all things mobile, email marketing, and then with some collaboration in the video space as well. And those with those channels, minus video, there's basically 6 of us now who are looking at everything day to day, but also kind of helping with the innovation engine. We see it as kind of 2 different engines: the performance engine, which is all the day-to-day tasks associated with all things digital, and the innovation engine of how we're improving upon things looking forward, how we're experimenting and trying different things out. And luckily, we have that sort of buy-in from our ownership and from our executive level that we need to be, testing things out, innovating, and not being afraid to fail. And that's something I know we're extremely lucky to have that sort of buy-in, because you need that, if you're going to try to innovate in these ways. But to your original question there, including myself, there's 6 of us kind of tasked with handling all those responsibilities, with input from every other department and help from every other department. But then for us, it's also having an understanding and an empathy for every organizational objective and how we can tie in and help with that. And
the mix going forward is are you sort of following the path that a lot of leagues and teams are pushing more into video, and your fans wanting more and more of that video content?
Yeah, most definitely. We actually just hired a brand new executive producer who was with the Giants for 14 years, and we're really excited to have him on board. His name's Paul Hodges. He's going to be helping really lead us in that video effort. We actually produced, I went through it the other day, we produced 600 pieces of original video content in the last 12 months, which is great and shows the level of it. We're churning things out, but it also might be too much. We're putting up videos just to put them up and without an overarching strategy. So while that's a great number and it's big, I don't know if we want to have 600 original pieces of video content next year. We want to kind of harness some of that and rebrand it and repackage it so that it makes more sense. And then it's not only going to live just on Warriors.com and on YouTube, but that we find additional distribution channels, that we make broadcast quality content that's going to go on TV. We're exploring other ways to reach our fans, whether it's, again, in the United States or globally. And there are certain restrictions we face with the league, with our broadcasting partner, but so we work within those agreements. But at the same time, we're constantly looking of ways we can push the boundaries in the effort of the goal of making ourselves a global brand.
I mean, I'm always looking at outside of sports for inspiration for what sports can do. And I mean, if you're looking at, from a video strategy and making your brand bigger and making people aware of what you're doing, you only have to look at, and these are the people at the top of their game. You only have to look at what Jimmy Fallon and Kimmel are doing with all of their video skits and that are going on YouTube and becoming viral, and they're becoming the must-see, the must-share thing that are causing the tune in. And effectively, you want to be able to produce those kind of video pieces that become water cooler talk, shareable everywhere. People want to tune in to find out what the next, almost, what's the next Warriors digital short. Is that the sort of space that you would like to be in?
Most definitely. That's something we talk about a lot here. Is we too often get confined into comparing ourselves to other NBA teams or maybe other sports teams, which is good and a good way to measure yourself. But we want to consider ourselves an entertainment company that happens to play basketball, and with that, comparing ourselves to other industries, looking for best practices in other industries, but understanding the media and entertainment landscape as a whole, understanding that we are our own media entertainment company, and taking cues and inspiration from people like Jimmy Fallon. You definitely hit the nail right on the head on that, and knowing that we have the opportunity to be creative in that way is liberating to some extent, and it's fun to just sit here and brainstorm about what's possible. And we also have a great group of guys on the team itself that definitely gets that and understands that, and especially as the I guess maybe as I get older, but the players get younger, they come into the league already knowing all about social. Yep. And already having a presence and already having some of that training, to where a few years ago that wasn't the case, and it was a lot of us kind of helping guide that. But now all these guys are socially savvy and understand media, and it's great to work with them and use them as an asset, and then have be there to help them as well if they need it, and kind of work in that way.
If you have, for the people who are listening, I know Kevin's got to go in a minute to another meeting, but definitely check out your Happy video, your music video take of Pharrell's Happy. It's exactly in that spot of it, get everyone dancing, show the Warriors brand overall. The players got involved. That was a massive success for you guys last year.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. We actually got in on that really early. We had that, and that inspiration came from our game ops department, and that's where it goes to show the collaboration with all departments here. They saw that video and they thought, oh my God, that's going to be huge. We need to do something. We jumped on it, and then we actually got to the point where Pharrell performed at halftime of the All-Star game, and we got him to. He was all in on the video. He already retweeted it months before that, but he got to the point where we got to connect with him in the All-Star game. He did a personal message for our fans, and that became, a good moment for the entire season, and something that evolved out of just a brainstorming idea in a small room that evolved into a much bigger showcase for the brand, and also a fun nod to our fans.
I mean, that's a great takeaway. Even though you've got a team of 6 in your digital team and the wider, your wider team, the fact that there's plenty of great ideas in your whole organization. So if you can sort of make sure that you're having those conversations, someone else might see something that will be a hot topic or a trend or have a great idea. Being able to let anyone put in a suggestion or tap you on the shoulder is great advice for any team. I think otherwise you're just insular and looking at your own team.
Yeah, and beyond that, we're lucky to be, again, in the Bay Area where our neighbors are Facebook and Google and Twitter and so many other great tech companies, and so those are our neighbors, but they also become content partners for us. So we're able to test things out, try things out, and have that kind of conversation with them and take advantage of our location. And so we try to take advantage of that as much as we can as well.
Well, thank you very much, Kevin, for coming on the podcast. I know you've got to jump into another meeting, so very much thank you for spending some time, and I'm looking forward to catching up with you in San Francisco for SEAT next year, and I might even pop over earlier to catch a Warriors game.
Yeah, definitely, and I'm glad you have your voice back, and I hope next year at SEAT. I think last year at SEAT you were on crutches. This year you lost your voice, so hopefully next year you're at 100%.
Oh no! Apparently, I've meant to do live surgery on stage if the trend continues.
So, yeah, one or the other.
One or the other. Thanks very much, and I'll speak to you soon.
All right. Cheers.
Sign up for Sports Geek News at sportsgeekhq.com/sign up now.
Thanks again to Kevin Cote for coming on the podcast. I hope to get back to San Francisco before SEAT next year and catch a few games like I did last in March in 2013. I was lucky enough to go to a Warriors game. And yes, for those who are looking to register for SEAT, get your tickets now for both SEAT 2015 in San Francisco. Early bird registrations are open, and I've been speaking to Christine. The sales are going quite well. Expect it to be sold out. So don't suffer from FOMO, fear of missing out, by missing out on SEAT next year. And for those of you who are listening from London, SEAT London has been announced. March 17, 2015. It's going to be held at the Lord's Cricket Ground. It's going to be a one-day conference, and we're going to see if we can develop the similar kind of conference in London. So if you're in that sports technology space, definitely from a London point of view, turn up and register now for SEAT London. It's being run by Christine Stoffel in conjunction with Dennis Mills from Major Events International, both good friends of mine. It'll be a cracking conference. They've got some great speakers already. The guys from the 49ers will be there talking about Levi Stadium. So if you're in London and you want to be involved, simply go to sportsgeekhq.com/SEAT London or SEAT 2015 and you'll be redirected to the SEAT website. A really interesting talk, I should say, with Kevin Cote, especially on the video, 600 piece of video, and contemplating whether that needs to be more or less. We're really doing a lot of content reviews now with our AFL and NRL clients, and it's really based around my keynote at SEAT in Miami around who are you framing the content for, what are the results you're trying to get out of it, what commercialization opportunities are there in some of the content that you're producing. So if you're in that review and planning mode for next season, please give me a call or send me an email, Sean@sportsgeekhq.com. Would love to help you out. My next chat is with Jesper Nyholm from the Danish Olympic Committee. He's a fellow SEAT steering committee member. And we talk about engaging fans in between Olympic Games. Very happy to welcome a good friend of mine and fellow member of the International Steering Committee of SEAT, all the way from Denmark, Jesper Nyholm. Welcome to the Sports Geek podcast, mate.
Oh, thank you, Sean. Thank you for having me.
Well, first of all, we have been going backwards and forwards on the email since Miami trying to organise this. We were meant to do this in Miami, but my lack of voice stopped me doing a few interviews. First of all, I want to get into what your role is and what you've been doing with the Danish Olympic Committee. Do you want to give us a little bit of history about your role and how your role has grown working with the Danish Olympic Committee?
Yeah, sure. The Olympic Committee of Denmark is having a tough job getting sponsors because, the sponsor market has been in trouble, especially maybe in Europe.
Yep.
So we've, in the last 5 or 6 years, we've been exploring how digital could help us raise the money we need to create world-class athletes. And I have joined forces with the Olympic Committee, and because of the background I have within digital media, and try to be the guy promoting these activities and making more money for the committee.
And so part of that, through the development, doing campaigns for sponsors and things like that, and we'll dive into some of the stuff you've done. But part of that is just this year you've effectively spun off a digital agency that is under the umbrella of Sport One Denmark, 7 Peaks. So effectively now you're running that and driving all the digital initiatives that the Olympic Committee has with sponsors.
Exactly. Because there's such a gap between what we're doing commercially, non-digital, and digital, we decided to create an agency focusing exclusively on the digital part. And I'm in charge of that. As you said, 7 peaks. We're aiming to make people peak 7 days a week with the knowledge the Olympic athletes and the staff behind the athletes they create.
So that name, and I did not know that until you just said that. So that name really harks back to one of the questions that you put to me after seat around, one of the big focus was game day, and everyone was talking about game day and engaging the fan on game day. How can we engage them on the way to the stadium? How can we engage them via mobile? But you posted a question back to me about heavier fan engagement in between games, and that's pretty much where that 7 peaks piquing their interest. You can do it several ways, but piquing the fans' interest every day of the week, not just game day. That really has to be a focus for you guys. Being in the Olympic movement, you've got these big events every 2 years, but you've got this time that they're not super active in between. Is that sort of where that question came from, if I can get that question out the door?
Yeah, exactly, Sean. Because when I attend seat, I envy those guys so much. In basketball, they have like 80 games a season, and in baseball, even more. And we are sitting pretty tight, waiting for the next Olympic in Rio 2016. So that's exactly what I'm focusing on here. Is, hey, we have off time from the stadium. Where can we make the money, and how can we engage the fans between the games? And exactly that's what 7 Peaks is all about.
And so you're really looking at keeping the brand out there, keeping the lesser known athletes more in the profile in the Denmark sports market. Is that primarily a big part of your role?
Exactly, because we're only like 6 million people in Denmark, and to produce world-class athletes and get sponsors interested in an event every 2nd or 4th year, well, you need to be able to promote the athletes, the activities, and all the assets we have in sports in other ways than just focusing on the game.
So what are some of the things that sponsors are doing in between the games? What are some things you're doing now? I see you've been tweeting about the Nordic Challenge. Tell us a little bit about that and what the focus the sponsors want in between games.
Well, we have 2 things that we are focusing on mainly, but both of them jump out of the same asset we have. It's the knowledge. We have so many people creating knowledge here in the Olympic Committee, and that knowledge is all about becoming the best you can be. And we have created 2 products that we use for our sponsors. One of them is what we call the Winner Academy, where leaders and medium in medium sized and larger companies they go to an academy and learn everything about handling a team and creating winner mentality among the employees in the company. And it's actually athletes and trainers and coaches and sports psychologists that are teaching the sponsors' employees here. So that's like one part. And the other part is then this digital campaign software where all the employees in a company of a sponsor get to join an up to 12 weeks campaign where they try to break all the bad habits they have, habits that prevents them for performing the best they can, and instead promote the good habits, that more exercise, eat healthy, less tobacco and less alcohol. And as of now, we have, as we speak, 3 campaigns running. And one of them is the one you're talking about for Nestlé, where 4 countries are competing against each other. The employees of Nestlé in Denmark, Sweden, Norway, and Finland, they're actually competing about who can create the most health in 10 weeks. And this is all. Yeah.
And so is that in the sort of you're tracking their activities? Are you using wearables or anything like that, or is it just a matter of them logging in and logging steps and predominant those kind of things?
Well, to begin with, everybody is tested. This is done by both a physical exam and also a questionnaire. And based on that questionnaire, everybody get an individual goal, a point goal, points where they have to reach these points on an average every day throughout the campaign. And then every day they go to the website and they track their eating habits, their sleeping habits, their exercise habits, and also their work-life balance habits. And actually, we managed to have like 80% of all the employees signing up for this. And among these 80%, you have like 75% who complete a campaign like this with reporting every day. Yep. And that creates a massive change in the organization. Less people are sick, people are more motivated, social capital raises, and all these things we see as well in a team of sports people when you work together.
So really, it's from a sponsorship point of view, you're really tackling that staff engagement sort of space rather than that customer focused, sell more widgets or get more traffic to their site. You're really focusing on, well, we've got this in-house talent of people, athletes that are driven, that know how to be the best of at what they do, and you're trying to push that message of health and get more people active, using the Olympic message, using the branding of the Danish Olympic Committee, but engaging your sponsors' employees.
Exactly. That's what we're doing, and every person in Denmark, and I guess that's the same in the rest of the world, or if you're a fan of any other team in any other sport, well, you would love to be closer to that brand that you're proud of.
I think that's really, really important. And I think there's a lot of, especially in the sponsorship game, of not realizing, a lot of the time the sponsor will come to you or come to a sports team really wanting to access your database and access your fans and sell them something. But I think there's a couple of times, and this is one of them, when you can flip the script, and rather than saying, let the sponsor mine your data, is to let you help them, and effectively, you can mine their data, and their data in this case is their staff, whether it's getting them engaged and getting them healthy or selling them tickets and those kind of things. It's a real important to realize that there's another database in that transaction. It's the one that the sponsor brings, and what value can you bring to their database, and not really always have it that one way, sell stuff to my fans sort of relationship.
Yeah. And even more, Sean, what we're experiencing right now is that the sponsor who are experiencing their employees becoming more healthy and more engaged in the daily work. Now the sponsor is starting to think, what if we did this and reached out to our customers?
Yeah.
What if all our customer base experienced the same thing? And in that way, we as Olympic Committee, we are getting closer and closer to where the big decisions are made at our sponsors, and for a good reason, because we create value. True value, not just visibility and beers on stadiums. Yep,
and that's the thing. You're effectively giving them, I guess, the employee model as a way to say this campaign works, and then they have the option to flip that to their own customers at a wider reach.
Exactly.
So that's a real big, thing. I mean, something you have to do in that in between times. I want to take you back to actually when you're in games mode, because as much as you said, the NBA, have 40 home games, and the Major League Baseball have stacks more, and the NFL has short amount of games, but they are really huge events. But an Olympic Games is like compacting one of those one seasons into a 2-week period. Do you want to take us through what it's like inside an Olympic team and keeping all those digital campaigns going and engaging the fans? What is it like in that inner sanctum during your games?
Well, during the games, I mean, it's hectic because, many athletes, even though they play in the NBA or the NFL or wherever they play, will at the end of their career state that the biggest thing they ever experienced was participating at the Olympic Games, and this is just such a huge thing that even in Denmark, where maybe we have like 100 athletes going to the Summer Olympics, and it starts the day the last Olympic ends. That's where we start building up for the next Olympic Games. And actually, in Denmark, the Winter Olympics, even though you should think so, is very small for us because we have 8 or 10 athletes going. You have to go to Sweden or Norway to become a little more excited about that. So it's actually the Summer Olympics that's big for us. And every day we have great people working to try to get the athletes become better and better and better, and eliminate all the obstacles that stand between the athletes and their ability to bring back gold for Denmark. And
one of the things I wanted to know, we've sort of seen because the Olympics is every 2 years, that the IOC has been a little bit slow to get up to speed with everything digital, especially in social point of view and the really locked down media rights and what you can and can't do, and their policies didn't quite catch up to things like Twitter and Vine and Instagram and things like that. How have you, did you from looking at least from London to Sochi, did you see that get better a little bit and the reins loosen a little bit and the games becoming a bit more socially active, both from a participant's point of view, the athletes, and the organising bodies?
I think we still have a long way to go, because, for example, as a commercial unit here in Denmark, the National Olympic Committee, the NOC, every country has an NOC responsible for managing the IOC rights in that specific region of the world. And so it's pretty much up to every country, instead of the IOC to promote like good guidelines and they just take care of the big massive sponsors, and in every country we have to like figure out our own way to engage people digitally or offline, and that's tough because we don't have the resources to do that. And I'm trying to promote that digital would actually be the most economical way to do that, probably. But it takes time, and I believe that we have to get past Rio in 2016, because in Rio, everybody will experience that even the sponsors that are engaged here, if they're not socially well, the people will be anyway, and they will lose out.
And the thing is, I mean, again, to use the football, whether it be the NFL or the Premier League or even the AFL here, unfortunately, the Olympic movement doesn't get that opportunity to go, let's try this week and see how it worked and change and tweak it and do something different, because you've got that. You can't be making tactical changes, throughout a 14, 16-day tournament. You've pretty much got to do all your planning, get ready to go. And yes, you can review how it went after it, but you can't be making those changes over a 6-month period to see how things went, which is primarily one of the reasons why, other than the IOC being a really large organisation and the fractures that there are because of the NOCs running things, it does make it very hard to be agile and nimble and up with the latest when you're only getting 2-week shot at something every 2 years.
Yeah, and besides that, you to complete that picture, you have to think that if it was an NFL team, it's like for every game you have to build a new stadium, and all these things just makes the project or the campaign or the initiative so much bigger that it's hard to focus on everything the same way. So the Olympic is definitely behind when it comes to engaging socially and digitally, and it will take some time before we get there.
But the thing is, from your point of view, again, from a Danish Olympic Committee's point of view, you're still looking to tell all the stories that aren't being told by the official broadcasters, by the IOC's channels, because you want to make sure that your story gets out, and that's that point of differentiation. So you're very much similar to a sports team, whether it be the New England Patriots or Arsenal. You're trying to tell and sell, because you are commercializing it, the Denmark Olympic message, whether it be a particular team, a particular athlete that's running or swimming or whatever it is. You've got to get that message out, and you want to make sure that your home base, your website and your social channels are a destination of choice when the Olympics are on. So that's always something that you're trying to drive.
Exactly. And I guess every country will try to do the same thing. And it would be great if there was some kind of collaboration between, you could promote this even more with the benefits of everybody.
Well, I mean, and yeah, that's the challenge, and I think getting like the stuff that you're doing and running the campaigns to build up that awareness of what you're doing is going to give you that run up to when the games come on. Because I think the World Cup's a good example. The recent World Cup in Brazil, like the world's attention, like literally turns on to those teams and those properties like in the 2 or 3 weeks prior to that. So there's a really big window of making sure that the fans know what you are, what you provide, what kind of levels of content and service and response you can provide. Because once it's on, there's going to be such a flood of information from media partners and bloggers and fans that it does become very cluttered.
Yeah. Yeah, and our sponsors, particularly in Denmark, they and of course in everybody in any other NOC, they're concerned with that we are not allowed to promote them outside of Denmark. That's the part of the
So you have, which is, I mean, that's a little bit archaic, and I spoke to Ted Johnson recently. He's going to be on a future podcast. It's similar to what the NBA had with those in the early days, those geographical restrictions of what you can do. But digital doesn't have a geographic boundary. It makes it very tough for you to say, Jesper, send out that tweet with that sponsor message. Oh, but don't let anyone outside of Denmark see it.
Yeah.
That's just something that can't happen anymore. And it really limits you if you can't do that. I mean, we all know if you put up a Facebook post and you put a geographical boundary around it, you can pretty much kiss the edge rank goodbye, because it won't. No, hardly anyone will see it. It really makes things tough for you in that sense.
Yeah, and that's what's eventually going to help us drive the change here in the Olympic atmosphere, because you can't maintain that way of working when we're living in a digital world. And actually, I don't see that many reasons for this being a good idea, that we're trying to limit the sponsors that way. So I think it will change, John. After after maybe next Olympics again, we'll see that the digital is so much far ahead than the guidelines we have for promoting sponsors. We need to change things.
And the Olympic movement, if not, is definitely one that's moved by the money that's involved. Let's be honest. So I think as more partners get involved and want to be doing promotions on digital, and that money, if we look at Oscar's Ugaz's pie representing where the money is coming into sport, as digital's slice of that pie gets a little bit wider. I mean, the money for TV for the Olympics is always going to be big. The sponsorship money is always going to be big. Ticketing is always an issue in getting those sales. But as the pie for digital grows, I think that's when those kind of restrictions will start to loosen up, because it will become really a key commercial driver for the Olympic committees going forward. If they can work a way to produce great content and produce great campaigns for their sponsors, then that's what they'll be pushing for, because it's their own platform. Digital, it offers their own platform. They don't have to push it to another platform such as TV.
Exactly, I totally agree.
Well, Jesper, I'm very thankful that we finally did get to catch up. Looking forward to catching up with you next year at SEAT. I hope you'll be at San Francisco, and I hope I'll be able to talk to you this time.
Yeah, that would be great. I'll be in charge of the morning run, so you also got to bring your running gear.
Need help with your content? Book in for a content brainstorming session with Sports Geek now. Go to sportsgeekhq.com/work.
Thanks again to Jesper for joining me on the podcast all the way from Denmark. Really interested the model that they've gone with the Danish Olympic Committee in setting up 7 Peaks. It's a little bit similar to MLB, Advanced Media, in setting up its own digital agency and funneling all the sponsors through that. I'd be interested to see if there's other sports and potentially organising bodies that follow that lead. Wanted to have a quick plug for the NFL Lookbook. What we've done is we've taken all the NFL team websites and put them into one handy PDF. It's not a small PDF, but it's got all the team pages. So if you want to have a look at that, you can sign up and get it at sportsgeekhq.com/lookbook. If you're a Sports Geek News subscriber, you will get it in the next email. But if you can't wait, get it now. This week's Sounds of the Game comes from the Kansas City Royals, thanks to their Instagram, making the World Series.
1-1 changeup. Fly ball, deep left. Gordon back to the wall. Did he catch? He did catch that ball. Alex Gordon. Router to third, fair ball. Moustakas across. And 29 years of frustration has ended. The Royals are going to the World Series.
And I just love seeing the passion of the Royals fans and everything they're doing online. It's, again, a real good example, same as what we saw with the Rabbitohs. Make sure you're making the most of these opportunities and really pumping out the best content that you can that enables your fans to share it and get involved and be part of it and bring them into that inner circle. So keep an eye on what the Royals are doing, but also watch what the fans are doing and how you can adapt to that. Social media post of the week goes out to Cristiano Ronaldo, 100 million Facebook fans. He's now the second most followed or liked person on Facebook behind Shakira. That clock is telling me to get out of the podcast and let you guys get back to your lives. This episode show notes are at sportsgeekhq.com/64. You can pretty much get every single episode by just putting the number after sportsgeekhq.com. Check out the previous guests, Mark Cuban, Peter Stringer, Richard Clark, guests from around the world. Please, if you haven't listened to them, go back, tell me that you're listening to them. Send me a tweet at Sean Callanan. And I've got a challenge. I'm going to run a bit of a competition. I haven't run it past my legal team. What I want you to do is tweet me a picture of your iTunes review. You can leave a review on the iTunes store. To get there, just go to sportsgeekhq.com/iTunes. It will take you to the iTunes store of your country. Take a snapshot of your iTunes review and tweet it to me. For the next 3 episodes, everyone who sends me a tweet with their iTunes review, you're going to go in the running, and I'm going to give away one of my Sports Geek t-shirts. You can either get the old school Detroit Pistons logo one that I gave to Ben Newton previously with a Facebook comp, or one with the Sports Geek logo, or maybe I might put up a few more Sports Geek t-shirt designs. But yeah, fun little competition. Pretty much I just want you to tell me where you're listening to it, when you're listening to it. This podcast is a slow burn, so it's not immediate. Thank you very much for listening. My name is Sean Callanan, and you've been listening to the Sports Geek podcast. One final shout out and a big congratulations to all the team at the A-League with a really successful launch of the A-League last week, and they've just recently broken through the 100,000 member barrier. So at the end of this podcast, a bonus sounds of the game with all the A-League goals from the first round of the A-League. So congrats to all the A-League guys, and keep an eye on the beautiful game.
Check out which teams work with SportsGeek at sportsgeekhq.com/clients. Find all SportsGeek podcasts at sportsgeekhq.com/SGP. Send in your sounds of the game. Email Sean at sportsgeekhq.com. Thanks for listening to the Sports Geek Podcast.
Full toll here, they can do! Barisha sends Cote, and now Broxton! Bridge, Sachi Thompson!
Firo, chance here for the central coast. Mara trying to stay outside and going, a chance for Melbourne City, David Mara! Vince pulls it back, win for the Perth Glory.
Right through! Ready for Jitse! Delivery whipped across the face, and it's an own goal. Adelaide United in front.
You're still here? It's over. Go home. Go.